Welcome back to World of Immersion. It has been about a year from our last ranking of all of the roller coasters at Six Flags Magic Mountain, and you guys definitely seem to like the last video a lot. So we decided to do a 2023 update. Our ranking has in fact changed, and so here it is, our official ranking of all of the roller coasters at Six Flags Magic Mountain. Just a quick announcement, we just introduced memberships to our channel. It's called Immersion Plus if you want to sign up. You'll get early access to videos, priority replies, and a couple other things too. So sign up if you would like, but subscribing and liking is amazing too. With that being said, let's get right into the ranking. Now, starting out in last place at number 20, we have Magic Flyer. This is sort of a no-brainer. It's just the kiddie coaster. There's honestly not much to it, and I think everybody would agree with that. Coming in at number 19, we have the worst of the sort of bigger kiddie coasters in our opinion. This is Speedy Gonzalez Hot Rod Racers. The layout is kind of boring, and it's actually a bit rough. But other than that, it's just not a very interesting ride. It's fun if you're a little kid, obviously. Now, we're just flying through these. Coming in at number 18, we have Roadrunner Express. Now, this is actually the biggest of the kiddie coasters, but not our favorite. Roadrunner Express is a lot of fun. It's definitely for a lot of the older, younger kids. It's got a pretty fun layout. It's not too rough, but not really any good forces or anything like that. Unlike the next coaster on our list, coming in at number 17, we have Canyon Blaster. Now, I've talked about this coaster before, and I am a huge fan. This roller coaster hits hard. Those bunny hills are very intense. Obviously, it's not as good as the other coasters at the park because it still is a kiddie coaster, but for it being a kiddie coaster and almost having practically no weight every time you try to ride it, it's a ton of fun. Now, going into the more bigger roller coasters, we have coming in at number 16, Gold Rusher, the oldest roller coaster in the park. And it is starting to show. Is this roller coaster fun? Absolutely. However, it just doesn't compare to the other rides in the park. It still is a bit rough. There's not a ton of forces. It's not an interesting layout. But overall, it's kind of just a meh ride. And honestly, recently, we've been seeing it getting a pretty big weight. And the only way that we would ever ride this coaster is if it doesn't have a weight. So that's why we put it at the bottom of the big roller coasters. Now, coming in at number 15, this is definitely going to surprise a lot of people. This is Superman Escape from Krypton. Unfortunately, this roller coaster just doesn't do it for us. Although the launch is 100 miles an hour, it's an extremely low acceleration. Our issue with the coaster is that the restraints are so incredibly restrictive that you don't feel any of that weightlessness or openness that you should feel when you're 410 feet vertical in the air. Not to mention, the ride is so incredibly short. Now, coming in at 14, we have the world's first circular loop. This is Revolution. Now, this roller coaster has really stood its time. It was built almost 50 years ago, and it is still running pretty well. The lap bars are great, very open. The loop is pretty forceful, which we like, and it's overall just like a nice little scenic route through the forest and the hills. It's not outstanding because there's not really any major elements that, you come off the ride like going like, wow, that was so good. But it's overall like a fun experience, and if there isn't a super long wait, we would definitely do it. Now, another big surprise for some of you, coming in at number 13, we have Scream. Now, if you've watched our rankings or our reviews before, you will know that we are actually not the biggest fans of Scream, and our last visit to Six Flags even made our opinion stronger. Scream is not doing too well right now. It has a very, very strong rattle to the point where it's extremely rough and not very enjoyable. I actually come off the ride with a headache. Now, that's not to say that it's not a fun experience. Scream has a good layout. It has some great elements. That zero-G roll is a ton of fun. Huge loop, fun drop, and of course we'd rather do it than nothing, and there's a lot of other rides that we think are a lot worse than it. It's just frustrating because, when we were younger, we used to love this ride, and we just feel like it has gotten so much worse over time. But overall, just an okay ride, and that's why it comes in at number 13. Now, coming in at number 12, we have Ninja. It's a nice little ride that goes kind of around like a scenic tour around the park. It definitely picks up some speed in that second half and can be pretty intense. The suspended aspect is fun, swinging left and right. It's pretty comfortable trains, not super rough. It was built by Arrow, and it's not a rough ride. That's pretty good. And just overall, it's just like a fun ride. Now, coming in at number 11, we have Riddlers Revenge. Now, this ride has a great layout. It has some good elements. The standing aspect is cool. Those loops are forceful. There's actually some pretty good moments of airtime. Overall, very, very fun ride. Our only issue is similarly to Scream. It's got a bit of a rattle. Now, it's not as strong as Scream's, which is why it's a little bit higher up on our list. But that rattle is still there, which is why it's kind of on the lower end. Not to mention, the standing position is fun for things like airtime, but when you have positive G-forces, it is just not a lot of fun. Now, as we break the top 10, I want to sort of say that every single ride 10 and above we think is a good roller coaster, and none of these rides are bad. And in fact, it's pretty tricky to rank a lot of these roller coasters because they are so good. But with that being said, let's get into number 10. Now, coming in at number 10, similarly to Superman Escape from Krypton, proving that just because it's big doesn't mean it's good, we have Goliath. Obviously, you cannot have a 255-foot roller coaster and for it to not be somewhat fun. And we do think it is a fun roller coaster. The drop is fun because it's tall, although the descent is not very steep, so you don't really feel that drop. You go into that turn and it's kind of just like whatever. And then you go into like probably the best element on the ride, which is a ton of fun. That airtime hill is just great. You get some incredible floater. However, it's kind of just like a boring rest of the ride. After that, you go into a stopped mid-course brake run and then into a bunch of extremely forceful helixes. And these helixes are just not very enjoyable. You know, when you're pulling like 4Gs, I believe, you're like almost graying out every time, especially on like a hot day where it's going extra fast. Not to mention there's literally only 1 point of airtime and it's a hyper coaster. But again, still a fun roller coaster. It is 255 feet and 80 miles an hour. But moving on to number 9, another one that will probably surprise some people is West Coast Racers. Now, a couple weeks ago, I made a video about why we think West Coast Racers is a mid roller coaster. And that is sort of why it is number 9 on our list. West Coast Racers is a fun roller coaster. Do not get us wrong. It's got a good layout. The racing aspect is a ton of fun. It's just got so many aspects to it that sort of ruin it, almost entirely being the cart. The cart is incredibly small, very, very hard to fit into. Both me and Nolan are not gigantically tall people. We're around 6 foot and we have trouble fitting into these carts. These shin guards are completely blocking your knees from having any sort of like freedom, which we understand is a safety measure. They're just so incredibly tight to the point where it's uncomfortable. And of course, the comfort collars are kind of unnecessary in our opinion. I'm not a safety expert when it comes to roller coasters, but Full Throttle, for example, doesn't have them, so I'm not sure why West Coast Racers does. But again, like I said, not a terrible roller coaster, kind of just mediocre, and that's why it's at number 9. Now, another one that may surprise you, that is right, we have another unpopular opinion. Coming in at number 8, we have Viper. And just like the West Coast Racers video, we have a video about why we think Viper is incredible. It is so incredibly out of control. It is 180 feet tall and roughly 70 miles an hour. It's got 7 inversions. Yes, it is rough. Do not get us wrong. It is very, very rough. However, if you do stick your head forward, you can sort of get rid of that head banging. And if you put your head back on the loops, you can get rid of any whiplashy feelings that you might get. But this ride is just great. It's so out of control. It's incredibly forceful. Now, if you're sitting in the front row, you can actually get some pretty good airtime. The hang time is incredible. Not to mention those 2 corkscrews at the end are a lot of fun. You feel like you're just falling out of your seats. But this ride is just a monster. We definitely get why people hate it. However, for us, we just think that it is a ton of fun. Now, coming in at number 7, this ride is currently closed, but it is Apocalypse. Now, Apocalypse has gotten retracked like a million times, and it is getting retracked again, which is good because hopefully it will mean it will become smoother. The only issue really with this ride is it can be a little bit rough sometimes, but for us, we actually really enjoy the ride. GCI has incredible layouts, and Apocalypse is definitely a great one. It just feels so incredibly fast. It goes through those elements really quickly. Lots of fantastic airtime. The elements are very forceful. The airtime is strong. That drop is super fun. Feels like you go through it very, very fast. It's just a very out of control, sort of crazy experience. Again, though, we get why people aren't huge fans of this because it is a bit rough sometimes. Now, coming in at number 6, this, in our opinion, is the most underrated ride at Six Flags Magic Mountain. This is Batman the Ride. Now, we aren't quite sure exactly what happened. We have some speculations. But when Batman the Ride reopened with Wonder Woman Flight of Courage in DC Universe, it seems to be much smoother. Someone in the comments let us know if they retract it, because oh my goodness, is this ride smooth. We would go as far as to say it is one of, if not the smoothest ride in the entire park. It also has a very strong layout. Extremely forceful. Again, you're going to gray out on a lot of those loops. It's super compact with tons of tight elements, and that smoothness just makes it so much fun. Again, we are not sure what happened or why it's like this, but it is just fantastic now, and we are huge fans of it. Now, breaking our top 5, coming at number 5, we have Full Throttle, the largest 161-foot loop in the world. That's right, they are now marketing this as the largest 160-foot loop in the world. Not quite sure what that means. It's an interesting way to come up with a record. That doesn't really matter because it is a super fun ride. That loop is incredible. The hang time is just so much fun. When you're going through that loop, it just feels like you're going to fly out of your seat, which is just so much fun. You then go into that corkscrew into the backwards launch, which is so much fun. Get good hang time, especially if you're in the back row. Then you go into that super fast launch over the top of the loop into that 90-degree drop right into the brake runs. It's obviously a short ride, which is not that great, but it still is a really, really good ride that packs a punch for how short it is. Now, coming in at number 4, this roller coaster has fallen a bit in our ranking. And this is Wonder Woman Flight of Courage, the new for 2022 roller coaster. Wonder Woman is a fantastic roller coaster. I mean, RMC never disappoints. I don't think RMC has a single bad roller coaster out there. And this ride is great, especially in the back row. Those forces, those airtime is incredible. The hang time is good on that 0G stall. It's quick, it's whippy, it's a lot of fun. We just have a few issues with the ride that we didn't necessarily notice. For example, there is a slight rattle, just a slight rattle that can be a little bit unpleasant, and the carts aren't super duper comfortable. The shoulder harness that you have over you is not the most comfortable, and that position that you're sitting in is also not great, but it doesn't really matter because it really makes up for it with its layout. The layout is just super strong, and the only one slight issue that we have is that this is such a light cart that if you do not have a full train, the airtime is not going to hit as hard. It's still going to be fun, but nowhere close to as fun as if you have a full train in the back row. But like I said, still an incredible roller coaster, and that is why it takes the number 4 spot at Six Flags Magic Mountain. Now, breaking our top 3, we think that all 3 of these roller coasters could be number 1s at any other park. Coming in at number 3, we have Tatsu, the world's highest flying coaster. This ride is amazing. It is smooth, it is intense, it is fun. There is so much to say about this roller coaster. That first drop is incredible into a very graceful sort of flight around the hilltops of Six Flags Magic Mountain. Going through those little twists is a ton of fun, kind of doing a couple turns. You go into that great pretzel loop, very, very intense. One of the most intense elements we've had on a roller coaster. It's a huge pretzel loop, and it is just loads of fun. It's a slightly short ride, but that honestly doesn't matter because it is just so much fun. And of course, the flying aspect just makes it that much better. Feeling like you're flying around the hills of Magic Mountain is just so much fun. And overall, again, just the outstanding and incredible roller coaster, and definitely a must ride for us when we go. But with that being said, let's get to the number 2 spot. Now, coming in at number 2 for the second place at Six Flags Magic Mountain, we have X2. This 4D coaster is crazy. It is probably, actually, I'm going to take that back. It is definitely the most intense, the most out of control, insane roller coaster I have ever ridden in my life. It is just so incredible. The craziness of the ride that you come up the lift hill backwards and flip going head first down a nearly vertical drop and then flip up at the last second before slamming your head into the ground is just crazy. I mean, you take a look at this beast when you're driving into the park and it looks awesome. Not to mention the rest of the ride is incredibly forceful with some amazing elements. When the fire is running, that is terrifying, which is so much fun. The only one complaint that we have about this roller coaster is the last element, the Raven turn into the brake run. It is rough, and there's no going around that. It is a very, very rough element, but it does not matter to us because the rest of the ride makes up for it. It is just craziness. It is intense. It is fun. But taking the number 1 spot at Six Flags Magic Mountain, Twisted Colossus. This RMC Mobius loop coaster is just so amazing. I mean, there is not much we can say that we haven't said before. This roller coaster is incredible. It is 100% the roller coaster that we have ridden the most times in our life. I don't even want to know how many times I've ridden this roller coaster. It is just insane. Twisted Colossus is just a one-of-a-kind experience. Even disregarding the incredible layout it has, when you get a dueling race with another cart, that is just such an experience that you cannot get on another roller coaster. West Coast Racers is a similar system with Mobius Loop, and you do race every time, but it's just not the same. Twisted Colossus, it is an RMC, which means it's smooth, it's got great airtime. Those inversions, both on the blue and on the green side, are so much fun. It is nearly perfect. The only thing that we would say is that we wish it raced every time, and it sucks when it doesn't race, but it's fine because the ride is still incredible, and that is why it takes the number 1 spot at Six Flags Magic Mountain. But anyway, that is going to do it for our 2023 updated ranking of all of the roller coasters at Six Flags Magic Mountain. I hope you guys enjoyed. Hopefully our video was not too controversial and you're not going to go to the comments and hate on us. But let us know if you do disagree because we are curious to see your rankings. But again, that's going to do it for our video today. We hope you enjoyed. Please make sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss another updates from World of Immersion. Thank you so much for watching World of Immersion, and we will catch you in the next one.